another developing story. Johannesburg Mayor, well now former Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda, has agreed to give up his mayoral chain. He had been facing mounting pressure to step down over his alleged poor performance. The Al Jama councillor was elected to office in May of last year, replacing his fellow party member Tapelo Ahmad, who resigned just hours before he was due to face a motion of no confidence. Let's bring in Tessa. She's a director at the Rivonia Circle. And in fact, Tessa, you're among those who called for Gwamanda to fall on his sword.
Well, thank you for having me, Michelle. So as part of the Joburg Crisis Alliance, which is an alliance of not only NGOs, but community-based organizations, neighborhood associations, residents associations, and so forth, the call was not simply for the mayor to resign, but for political accountability for the state of the city of Johannesburg and the ongoing crisis. And I think it was important for us to state that the mayor stepping down is only one part of a bigger set of demands that I think not only as the Joburg Crisis Alliance and individual organizations we've had, but that the residents of the city of Joburg has had. And so this is one step in the right direction in terms of the council. And I really want to put this beyond just the mayor. But the council needing to step up and take responsibility for the state of the city of Johannesburg. Unfortunately, as residents, the only thing that we really can do is put on pressure for political accountability, and this is what this signals. But it is the start of us really asking for very particular things to be addressed in the city of Johannesburg, and particularly as new leadership steps in, that we have a real good rationale from that council as to who they are putting into those positions and what their plan of action is to turn the city around.
Tessa, you talk about political accountability, and I want to get a sense from you, what that would look like in real terms. But just taking a look at Kabelo Gwamanda's statement in the build-up to his decision to relinquish the mayoral chains, he tells a different story, doesn't he, about his time as mayor since May last year. In fact, he goes as far as to say that he's very thankful for the fact that governance has improved under his tenure.
Well, in that same time period, if governance has improved, it's improved in terms of the number of people governing rather than the quality of governance. We have seen an explosion, for example, in the boards of the entities in the city of Joburg, almost double the number of board members across several different board entities, which has bloated the salaries that are coming into the city, but has not improved the quality. I mean, we look at something like the Joburg Property Agency, which after the fire that happened last year in the CBD, has not had any sense that there's accountability for the ways in which government buildings are being managed in the city of Joburg, buildings that are owned by the city. We have not seen any kinds of plans around how they're going to do urban renewal in the city. We have not seen a good accounting in the city of its finances. And so again, even beyond just the mayor himself, the mayor can't account for the fact that this year alone, the Treasury had said that the city is underspending in its capex, underspending in its infrastructure spend with its government grant by 40%. It is underspending. So if that is good governance, then that's part of the reason why this mayor then is not fit for office.
Certainly. It now is pretty much confirmed that the ANC will get one of its candidates into the position of mayor in Johannesburg with the support of other political parties, 90-odd seats in council, and as far as the ANC is concerned. What are you concerned about, Tessa, in terms of how that decision will be made? Will it be made, and this will be the hope, for the best interests of the city of Johannesburg and for furthering the very governance failures that you've just mentioned, dealing with those governance failures? Or will it be a case of political expediency?
Well, one of the things that's good about any move that makes the bigger parties and the parties that have had a lot more clout and a lot more power in the council to step up is that they can no longer hide behind a party that has much less leverage and a weaker stake, like Al Jama has with the last two mayors. I think that the ANC has hidden behind its coalition partners while it's been sitting in the Ministry of Finance, for example, in the city. So I think it's time for the people who are really calling the shots and really have the sway in council to step up and take responsibility for where we are, to not hide behind others, to take political accountability. And I think especially in the next 2 years, where we know that political parties will be jostling to show just how amazing they are in the run-up to the 2026 local government elections, it's really time that they start owning their decisions, not just passing them off on the mayor, but owning the decisions as a collective in council, as the biggest parties in that council, which includes the ANC, Action SA, EFF. Those councillors are jointly responsible for oversight, and those parties that make part of the mayoral committee are responsible for decision making, and they need to start taking accountability as a collective rather than being able to hide behind individuals.
Certainly. And you know, when we talk about this revolving door that has been the mayorship position here in Johannesburg, what would be great is for, if indeed there is a new mayor coming in, for them to report back on the programs of their predecessor and to say how they will then take those programs and move it forward. What it feels like is that whenever there's someone new in this position, I've lost count of how many mayors we've had over the past 5 years, Tessa, you'll tell us, but it feels like we're starting on a clean slate and we're trying to score points for the political party that I come from.
Yeah, we've had 8 mayors in 8 years. Some of that has been due to death, the death of at least 3 mayors in that period. But a lot of it has been due to what we call coalition chaos, where coalition partners and parties are just not, stabilizing their own coalitions, are not delivering on their coalitions, are not holding their coalitions to account, and importantly, are not making public a compact between the residents of Joburg and that coalition. The coalition parties are amongst themselves jostling for positions and making political deals, but making no social compact with the residents that says, if we do not deliver on the following few things, then there's cause for concern. And I think this is the opportunity and the moment for this, where the city is literally on tenterhooks. There's so many communities that are in a state of disrepair, who are upset, who are either already taking the city to court or threatening to take the city to court. It is time for each councillor to go ward by ward and put down a plan of action and a turnaround strategy from that council, from this mayoral committee, from the next mayor, that says this is what you can hold us accountable to, and this is what we intend to deliver on. To actually also be honest with the residents of Joburg about where the failures are. I think that the councillors, and I really want to stress this point, that the councillors, the majority of councillors are ward councillors, not PR councillors. They are there at the behest of their wards and their communities, not their political parties. The ANC alone has 91 councillors that are ward councillors, not ANC councillors. And so I want to challenge councillors to take their mandate from their local communities rather than from their political parties. So no matter who sits in that chair and which party they are from, those councillors will do their job and hold the executive to account.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying you want to challenge councillors. I would go as far as to say that residents in the city of Johannesburg are begging councillors to do exactly that. Wherever you look, there are potholes. We don't want to get into just the challenges in the city, but they are very, very difficult to ignore. Tessa, you've mentioned now a number of times the issue of political accountability, and I suppose part of that political accountability will come in 2026 when we go to the local government elections. But in real terms, in the build-up to those elections, what does that look like?
Well, it starts with us as residents, both in the context of our wards, but in solidarity with each other, starting to really ask and require of our councillors and of the executive to meet certain demands. And I think we need to start tallying those demands and making them clear. We need to know what the facts are of what is going wrong in the city and make those demands. So the questions around load reduction. We've just heard from Eskom this week that they have an oversupply of electricity, yet residents of Joburg can go 3 to 4 days without electricity. We need answers as to what is the plan of action around the maintenance issues that they have in the city when it comes to city power, but also the questions around what the city is going to do to ensure that it has a generation capacity going forward and a distribution capacity going forward. What is more important as well is that the political parties really start to agree on clear mandates that they take from their constituents. So we have an IDP process. the IDP processes have become political tick box exercises where we don't even get the notices for IDPs for our wards and for our municipality. We don't get those because the political parties will simply just bus in people who are aligned to them, that won't challenge them, that won't ask questions. I think that's where another part of accountability goes. The third and important one is the question about budgets. What is being budgeted for? What is being spent? What is not being spent? And why? We have seen an underspending in this city when it comes to not only its infrastructure, but even things like looking at indigent communities and indigent households that are not being catered to in the city when it comes to the provision of free basic services. We actually have an undercounting of the number of indigent homes in the city. The city would like us to believe that there's less than 100,000 of those kinds of households and persons in the city, when we know that there are millions of people who are sitting in a situation of dire unemployment, poverty, inequality, etc. So we need to know why the city is not spending on free basic services and ensuring that they are delivered. Yeah. But the budget process that comes up in the next year is a really important way that we can start holding our political representatives accountable in the city. We have to start galvanizing, we have to start organizing ourselves as residents and not only wait for political parties to organize us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Tessa, the outcomes of the May elections, our national election, perhaps the opening salvo in what is possible, right? And the power of your vote, the power of the ballot, and hopefully political parties, representatives, councillors, ward councillors take that as a warning of what may come in 2026.
No, absolutely. And also to the city residents, and this is about residents across different municipalities. We must take the power and the initiative around the fact that ward councillors are directly elected by us and live in our communities. Yep. And therefore, our ability to hold them accountable is higher. There are a number of by-elections that are happening across the country on an ongoing basis. We need to plug back into by-elections. We need to plug back into the ability to know who are these people who are going to represent us in council. Let's start asking ourselves, what is the criteria, the basic minimum criteria that we want from ward councillors in our communities, and how it is that we are going to use ward committees and general community engagement to hold them accountable on a case-by-case basis, so that when they go to council, they don't go there with their party mandate, but they go there with community mandates.
And Tessa, for communities who are listening to our interview, who are saying, yes, that is absolutely what we want to do in our community, how do we organize that? What kind of advice would you give?
So, I mean, we've, at the Rivonia Circle particularly, we've seen in the last 2 years how communities can come together. And the advice that I have is pick an issue, pick a struggle, pick a project, and start working towards it as a community. Sometimes we're so focused on the politics of personalities. And if we start focusing on just individual issues that we are willing to fight for and combine our efforts for in our communities, ask yourself as communities, bring yourselves together and ask, what can we prioritize to solve for in our communities? And what can we do in the next 3 weeks, 6 weeks, month, 2 months to try and work together to start a solution and enlist the help of our councillors and our government to do so. The impetus about democracy is that we must co-govern. And co-governance isn't waiting for somebody to invite us to a table. It is us coming together as communities of people and focusing on the issues that bring us together, the issues that we face jointly and severally, and not just focus on political parties as the brokers of our democracy. We are the ones that have to co-govern this society. Democracy is the people shall govern, not the government shall govern. And so let's get together, decide on issues that we can start to solve for, and start to make projects out of those issues and invite the state to partner with us.
The people shall govern, the power lies with you and I. Tessa is a director at Rivonia Circle. Thanks, Tessa, for that perspective.